Picture this. A wave of protests erupts in your city, sparked by a severe economic downturn. Crowds flood the streets, and while many start peacefully, tensions boil over as night falls. Storefronts get smashed, ATMs run out of cash, and looters scour abandoned blocks for easy targets. News headlines warn that emergency services are too overwhelmed to respond to every call. Suddenly, your once quiet neighborhood feels like a flashpoint. This kind of civil unrest can escalate overnight, leaving everyday families scrambling for safety in a place where help might not arrive until it's far too late. Now imagine a different scenario. A mysterious cyber attack cripples key infrastructure across the country, paralyzing shipping routes, freezing bank accounts, and plunging large swaths of the grid into darkness. Whether you live on a sprawling rural homestead or in a downtown condo, you wake up one morning to find your debit card rejected, the shelves at your local store already picked bare, and rumors circulating about roving groups looking for supplies. You might also face natural disasters like a fast-moving wildfire or a crippling winter storm that cuts off the roads. In the blink of an eye, normal life can unravel. Anyone, urban or rural, can end up feeling very alone. In this video, we're going to talk about fortifying your home so you're far less vulnerable when chaos unfolds around you. I'm not here to stir up fear. I'm here to help you build real confidence and preserve your peace of mind, even when the world outside is panicking. If this guide resonates with you, please share it, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to check out the tagged products below. They're items I use and recommend for serious home security enhancements. It's easy to assume the grid won't fail, that food will always be available, and that police can respond promptly, until we witness otherwise. In times of civil unrest or large-scale disruptions, that safety net can vanish overnight. When you see entire neighborhoods barricading themselves or grocery aisles stripped bare, fortifying your own home stops feeling like overkill and starts to feel like basic preparedness. But you don't have to turn your space into a grim bunker. With the right layers of defense, solid structures, smart technology, and smart planning, you can safeguard the people and possessions you care about, without sacrificing the comfort of your everyday life. Before you hammer the first nail or pour any concrete, it's vital to reflect on a few basic questions. Where is your home located, and does that location typically face hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, or brush fires? How dense is your neighborhood? Is there frequent foot traffic or a history of petty crime, even in normal times? All of these situational factors will shape how you prioritize your fortification efforts. One of the first choices you'll need to make is whether you plan to stay put, or if you have or want to acquire an alternative property for bugging out in a severe crisis. Remaining in your current home has the advantage of familiarity. You know the streets, the local resources, the neighbors who might band together in tough times. On the other hand, if you live in a heavily populated area prone to flare-ups of unrest, a rural property or a cabin in the woods can feel safer. But traveling to that out-of-town location in the heat of a disaster might be unsafe, so your timing and route would need to be carefully planned. If you opt to remain where you are, observe any natural terrain features that could either help or hinder you. Perhaps you have a property line that slopes, letting you see visitors approach from afar, or maybe that slope is prone to landslides or flooding. You might have dense trees that conceal your yard but also conceal intruders. The layout of your house matters too. A single-story ranch can be easier to secure, though a two-story home offers vantage points for monitoring an extended perimeter. Also ask yourself which entry points people commonly use. Some might only knock on your front door, while others might approach a side gate. If you've got kids or elderly relatives in your home, factor in their mobility and how quickly they can get to a safe part of the house in an emergency. Think about how you usually get out of your driveway or garage and whether that route might become blocked by panicked traffic or flooding. Each of these considerations affects how you'll structure your early fortification steps, from where you place extra locks to where you install cameras. Once you have an idea of the terrain, the property layout, and your planned approach to staying or leaving, you can begin implementing soft cover measures. Soft cover includes ways to reduce your home's visual profile or keep quiet about your preparations. This could be something as simple as planting tall hedges that act as a privacy screen from the road, reducing how easily people can see your supplies or equipment. It might also mean not boasting about your new generator on social media. Discretion is a massive component of fortification. If you broadcast that you're the one house on the block with a month's worth of food and multiple backup power sources, you draw unnecessary attention should a real crisis unfold. These preliminary steps aren't necessarily exciting or flashy, but they lay a foundation for all the practical work you'll do next. They help you avoid pouring effort into the wrong place, like building a high-end fence in the front yard while leaving the back wide open, or reinforcing a basement door that never gets used while ignoring a neglected kitchen entrance that's easy to break through. Walk around your property with fresh eyes. Imagine what it would look like to a stranger scouting for easy targets, and tackle the vulnerabilities you find. Now let's focus on the tangible house improvements that keep out intruders, protect you from the elements, and generally turn your home into a secure stronghold. The idea is to build layered security, starting with the actual structure, doors, windows, and walls, and working your way out to the perimeter. Doors are often a thief or intruder's first target. If your door is hollow or made of lightweight material, you're essentially inviting anyone who's truly determined to force their way in. Upgrading to a steel or solid core wooden door is a huge first step. Reinforce the door frame as well. That means using strong strike plates that go deep into the studs behind the frame. You can replace short hinge screws with longer ones that embed into the structural frame, making it significantly tougher for someone to kick or pry the door open. Some folks install additional horizontal or vertical bar locks on the inside, creating multiple points of resistance. While this might not look like a fancy high-tech system, a single steel bar across a door can be incredibly effective in halting a forced entry. Windows are another big vulnerability. Even dual-pane glass can be shattered with enough force, so consider adding a security film to strengthen the glass or upgrading to a shatter-resistant material, like polycarbonate. If you're comfortable with the aesthetic, metal window grates can keep potential intruders from clambering in. An alternative is interior window bars, which remain inconspicuous from the outside, but present a major obstacle to anyone who breaks the glass. Just be sure to maintain a way to escape in case of fire or other emergencies. Storing a small tool to break these bars from the inside or release a latch if that's how you design them is essential for safety. Some people go a step further, retrofitting certain interior walls to provide ballistic cover. This might mean reinforcing walls with layers of plywood or ballistic rated panels, especially around bedrooms or safe rooms. If that seems extreme, consider at least adding thicker drywall or fiber cement boards in key areas like hallways. These steps create safe zones inside your house, so if someone does breach the exterior, you can retreat behind extra layers of protection. Safe rooms don't need to look like bunkers. Some folks reinforce a walk-in closet, adding a robust door and a small vent system. They keep water, a flashlight, communication tools, and a few hours worth of food there. Should the worst happen, everyone in the household knows exactly where to go. It's easy to focus on preventing a break-in, but consider elemental threats as well. If you live in an area with frequent tornadoes or hurricanes, you might want to install storm shutters or invest in impact-resistant glass. If wildfires are a concern, clear away vegetation close to the house and use fire-resistant materials on your roof or decks. Some states have building codes that already require you to do this, but if yours doesn't, you can still adopt these upgrades voluntarily. A truly fortified home shouldn't crumble at the first sign of strong winds, floods, or a lightning storm. In terms of comfort, there's no reason a fortified home has to feel dreary. You can mix security with a pleasant design. Think of sturdy, aesthetically appealing doors, window grates that have a bit of decorative flair, and well-planned shutters that look normal but protect like industrial-grade covers. Remember, your family has to live there day in and day out, so retaining a comfortable, livable vibe can be just as important as creating fortress-level strength. A strong house is much less vulnerable if it's also got a sturdy fence or wall around it. This perimeter barrier gives you a critical buffer zone, a place where intruders can be detected early and discouraged before they can even try to force open a door. Some folks go for tall wooden privacy fences, others might install chain link for visibility. If local laws allow, you might erect a masonry wall or top fences with deterrents like barbed wire or spiked rails. It's important to research what's permitted in your area and weigh any legal restrictions against your desire for robust security. Whatever style you pick, pay attention to the fence's base. Whether it's partial burial, a metal skirt, or cement footers, you don't want big gaps where someone could slip underneath. The gate to your driveway should be just as tough as the fence. Flimsy gates become the go-to path for intruders, so consider metal gates with secure hinges that are bolted instead of screwed into easily removed brackets. Some even chain or lock the gates after dark or during times of heightened tension. If you opt for a motorized gate, make sure you have manual overrides in case of a power outage. Outside of fences, you can build a sense of deterrence in how you design the surrounding property. Motion sensor lights spook many would-be trespassers because no one wants to break in under a bright spotlight. Many intruders rely on stealth, and you can counter that with well-placed floods or corner-mounted lights that leave them exposed. Some people prefer solar-powered lights, which are independent of the grid and keep shining even when the power's out. Combining them with cameras that have night vision or infrared detection can greatly increase your awareness of what's happening around your yard. One additional consideration is controlling vegetation. You want to keep hedges trimmed so intruders can't hide behind them, but you also might use thorny plants near fences or windows as an extra layer of defense. There are many varieties of roses or berry bushes that look nice, provide fruit, and deter anyone who tries to push through them. A well-placed patch of sharp, thorny vegetation can be more unpleasant for a trespasser than a sign telling them to keep out. Some of these species grow quickly and fill in spots that might otherwise be easy to climb. Just remember, you'll have to prune and maintain them. Don't forget the simple act of patrolling your perimeter every so often, especially if you have a larger property. Walk along the fence line, check for any signs of tampering. Look for newly dug holes or sections that appear damaged. If you spot footprints or evidence that someone's tried to climb or cut through a certain area, reinforce it right away. You don't want that vulnerability to linger. This vigilance is a good habit even in normal times, because you can catch wildlife damage or structural wear before it becomes a serious concern. Early warning is everything in a crisis. If you can see an intruder or a threat at a distance, you can remain safe and in control of how you respond. That's the role of observation posts or guard stations. These don't have to look like a medieval tower with battlements and flags. Sometimes a second-story window or a well-placed balcony can provide all the vantage you need. If you do want something more permanent, you might build a small, elevated platform overlooking your fence line or driveway. Some choose to repurpose outbuildings, like barn lofts, old sheds, or even tree houses, reinforcing the floors and installing some minimal weather protection. A comfortable chair, binoculars, and a radio or phone can transform these spaces into functional watch stations. If a crisis truly escalates, a rotating watch schedule ensures someone's always looking out for movement or suspicious activity. This becomes especially crucial at night. With limited electricity or no streetlights, darkness can be the friend of criminals looking to move unseen. Pair these physical observation spots with technology. Cameras have become more affordable and effective, especially those with night vision or thermal imaging. A well-placed camera can detect movement along the fence line or alert you when a vehicle pulls onto your property. If you have the budget, an integrated system that displays feeds on a monitor inside your home is ideal, letting you switch cameras for different angles. Some folks opt for battery-backed wireless cameras so they don't lose coverage in a blackout. Others use drones for periodic sweeps of large properties, though that might be overkill or outside the comfort zone for some. Also, you should plan for how to communicate with family or neighbors when the watch station detects a problem. If there's a storm or power outage, cell service might be spotty, so walkie-talkies or CB radios can fill the gap. Keep them fully charged, test them occasionally, and store them in a spot that's easy to reach. A single person on watch isn't too helpful if they can't alert others promptly. This is also where the concept of neighborhood watch or mutual aid groups becomes valuable. In a long-term scenario, having multiple vantage points around the neighborhood can create overlapping coverage, making it very difficult for anyone to move around unseen. If an intruder is spotted, how you react depends on many factors. Sometimes simply calling attention to their presence, flicking on bright lights, or speaking through a loudspeaker makes them scatter. If you believe they pose a serious threat to life and property and your local laws permit, you might be ready to escalate. This is where we touch on lethal force. In many areas, homeowners have the legal right to defend themselves with firearms or other deadly means if they feel genuinely endangered. If you choose to keep firearms, train thoroughly on safe handling, target practice under stress conditions, and understand your legal responsibilities, The goal is always to avoid unnecessary loss of life, but in dire circumstances where you can't rely on external help, being armed and trained can tip the balance in your favor. Of course, laws vary widely from place to place, and you must operate within the legal framework of your jurisdiction. Always be sure of your backdrop and any potential collateral risks. While lethal force might be warranted in extreme cases, remember it's a last resort. Lethal measures get a lot of attention, but in many cases, you want non-lethal approaches that thwart criminals or vandals without gravely injuring them. This may be crucial if you have kids in the house, or if you live in a jurisdiction that strictly limits your legal right to self-defense with weapons. Guard dogs are a classic example of a non-lethal defense layer. Even smaller breeds can act as excellent alarms, barking at unfamiliar noises. Larger, well-trained dogs can intimidate intruders and give you precious time to respond. One piece of advice? Make sure your dog is properly socialized. A dog that bites a friendly visitor by mistake can create a different kind of trouble. You can also look into motion sensors, beam brake systems, or tripwire alarms that trigger a siren or strobe light. High decibel alarms can be incredibly disorienting and can scare off would-be intruders. Plus, if you're asleep or busy, an unexpected alarm is a clear signal to investigate. There's a wide array of pepper sprays or pepper gel devices that can be used to incapacitate someone without causing permanent harm. Tasers and stun guns fall under a similar category, but check your local laws before purchasing or carrying them. Some areas heavily regulate these devices. The point is, an intruder who gets a face full of pepper spray is likely to think twice about continuing their attempt, and it allows you time to either retreat safely or involve the authorities. Early detection is key to preventing a situation from escalating. If you detect intruders early, you can respond calmly rather than react in panic when they're already inside. This is why combining guard dogs, alarms, lights, and cameras is so potent. Even if you choose not to keep firearms or rely on lethal force, these measures are often enough to dissuade criminals from ever stepping foot on your property. And if they're not dissuaded, you have time to call the police, gather family members in a safe room, or flee if that's the wiser choice. All these measures, reinforced doors, fenced yards, guard stations, dogs, alarms, work best when woven into a cohesive strategy. Think of it like building a puzzle where each piece complements the others. If your fence is tall but your gate is weak, intruders will target the gate. If your cameras are top-notch but your door is basically hollow, the cameras might capture the break-in but won't prevent it. That's why I encourage folks to start with a holistic view of their home. Take a slow walk around your property boundary, imagining how you would break in if you had ill intent. Are there blind spots where thick bushes conceal a person? Is there a window that's hidden from street view and thus easy to smash quietly? Are your back and side doors as secure as your front door? Or do you tend to forget about them? Maybe you installed a great alarm system years ago, but you rarely maintain it. By approaching your home from the outside looking in, you'll spot the weaknesses more easily. Of course, there are cost considerations. Not everyone can afford to replace all their windows with ballistic glass or build high walls topped with barbed wire. You should prioritize. Perhaps the single largest vulnerability is your front and rear doors. Tackle those first. Then maybe invest in a few motion sensor lights or cameras for the key areas. Over time, you can upgrade your windows or add that steel gate. A systematic approach ensures you're spending your money effectively rather than throwing money at flashy gadgets that might not address your real needs. This layered approach also extends to your personal habits. If you broadcast your schedule to the world, checking in online whenever you leave the house, for instance, you make it easy for thieves to know when the property is empty. If you tend to leave ground floor windows open on hot days, consider adding a special stopper that allows ventilation but still prevents anyone from opening them wide enough to climb in. If you order survival gear or large amounts of groceries, avoid piling the boxes on your curb for all to see. Basic awareness of how you operate in daily life can reduce your vulnerability. And don't forget that if you do rely on lethal force as a final line of defense, it needs to be integrated with all these other layers. A properly trained and licensed individual who's aware of local self-defense laws should know exactly when and how lethal force is justified. They should also have a well-thought-out plan for calling authorities and securing the area afterwards. By blending the lethal option into a robust, primarily non-lethal framework, You ensure that you're not leaping to extremes at the first sign of trouble, but have the means to protect life and property should everything else fail. Even the best security system won't help if a prolonged crisis cuts you off from basic necessities and you're forced to leave your home unguarded to search for food or water. That's why thinking long-term is crucial. If a hurricane or blizzard leaves your region stranded for a month, your well-fortified home can become a lifeline if you have enough supplies and backup systems to handle that time frame. Water is usually the first resource you should secure. Storing large containers of water and having a way to purify more, like a Berkey filter or a DIY filtration setup, keeps you from getting desperate if taps run dry or become contaminated. People often underestimate how much water they need daily for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. Try to keep enough on hand to last your household a minimum of 2 weeks. If you're serious, aim for a month or more, or set up rain catchment barrels and learned filtration methods. Food storage goes hand in hand with water. Focus on shelf-stable items you actually eat. Canned meats, vegetables, grains, dried beans, pasta, and freeze-dried meals can sit comfortably in a pantry or closet for years if stored properly. Consider rotating these items into your everyday cooking so nothing goes to waste. If you live in a house with a bit of land, planting a vegetable garden or keeping a few chickens can provide a steady stream of fresh produce and eggs. That's especially meaningful in a long crisis. And it's worth mentioning that if you do keep chickens, ensure they're also protected by your perimeter fence or in a secure coop, or they'll become easy pickings for predators and thieves. Energy is another factor. Generators are great but can be loud and require fuel that might be scarce in a crisis. Solar power is silent, though it demands upfront costs and some technical knowledge. Think about storing extra wood if you have a fireplace or wood-burning stove. Even a small rocket stove outside can help you cook meals without relying on grid power. If you're storing fuel, do so safely. Fuel stabilizers can extend its shelf life and keep it in sturdy, sealed containers. Never forget that storing large amounts of flammable liquid in your garage can be hazardous, so weigh that risk and follow safe protocols. Maintenance is an ongoing task. A rotting fence post or a broken door hinge can compromise your entire security plan if not addressed. In a prolonged emergency, you might not be able to run to the hardware store for quick fixes, so stock up on basic repair supplies, nails, screws, wood planks, tarps, and adhesives. If your fence or your shutters take damage in a storm, you can patch them up promptly. Regular inspections, looking for wear and tear, rust, or cracks, can keep small problems from exploding into big ones. The self-sufficient approach is key. The more you can fix on your own, the less you rely on external services that might be overwhelmed or unavailable. Even with all these preparations, your home could become a magnet for trouble if you're too obvious about it. If you have bright floodlights, a generator humming at all hours, and a massive stockpile of water bottles in plain sight, people in need might come knocking. Or worse, criminals might see you as a prime target. Light discipline becomes important in extended outages. Blackout curtains or simply using fewer lights reduces the chance that your bright windows become the only glow on a dark street. If you run a generator, consider muffling the sound with an enclosure and direct the exhaust away from public view. Staying discreet also means controlling the flow of information. If you're well armed and prepared to defend yourself, you don't want local troublemakers to know exactly what you have or where you keep it. However, some folks feel it's beneficial to advertise a basic level of preparedness as a deterrent, like posting signs that say you protect your property. That can go either way, depending on who's reading the sign. It might scare off amateurs but challenge professional thieves. Consider the culture and crime rates of your community when deciding how visible you want your defenses to be. Another subtlety is managing visitors. Perhaps you have extended family or acquaintances who show up in a crisis expecting help. If you let them in, that's more mouths to feed, more people living under your roof, and a higher chance someone might reveal your preparations to outsiders. On the flip side, extra people can mean more hands to maintain security, cook, or watch the perimeter. The key is establishing ground rules before everything hits the fan. Make sure visitors understand your security protocols, whether that's limiting how often they go outside or instructing them not to discuss the stash of supplies. Sometimes friction arises even among close friends if they feel restricted or disapprove of your approach. That's why it's best to have serious conversations in advance if possible. Hidden or alternative exits can also come in handy. Maybe you block off your main driveway to funnel all visitors to a side entrance you can easily monitor, but keep an emergency path clear at the back in case you need to flee. Concealed pathways, hatch doors, or false panels can let you escape quietly if an intruder enters your home. You don't want your only strategy to be barricading yourself inside. Sometimes a strategic retreat is far safer. It depends on the nature of the threat and whether you have children, elderly, or individuals with special needs. Plan your routes around those requirements so that nobody is left stranded. If you're looking to push your home fortification beyond common methods, there are plenty of inventive tactics that don't appear in typical guides. One approach is creating decoy areas to misdirect intruders. For instance, some homeowners install a flimsy-looking door or a small shed that appears to store valuable items. Inside, it might be nearly empty or contain cheap decoys. The intruder wastes valuable time thinking they've scored while you remain safe in your actual stronghold. Another lesser-known tip is to set up noise traps in seldom-used corridors or near entry points that are out of direct view. These could be as simple as shards of pottery laid out behind a bush, or a tripwire linked to something that makes noise, like hanging metal objects. If someone crosses that wire, you immediately hear a racket and know where they're located. This might sound rudimentary, but even basic sound traps can alert you to movement without high-tech gear. If your property includes farmland or a larger plot, consider placing heavy or awkward obstacles along potential vehicle paths. Logs, boulders, or even large planters can block trucks from easily ramming through a gate. Some people dig shallow ditches or trenches, though you need to ensure you're not creating hazards for your own family. But in a real crisis, you might arrange these obstacles so that any incoming vehicle has to slow or take a zigzag path, giving you time to respond. For Vantage and Overwatch, night vision devices and thermal scopes are advanced tools that can change the game. Thermal devices detect heat signatures, so people can't hide behind a bush as easily. If you live in an area with frequent power outages, these gadgets let you see who's lurking around your property even on the darkest nights. They do require an investment of time and money, as well as some practice to interpret what you're seeing. But if you prioritize early detection, they're an excellent option. When it comes to lethal force, some property owners choose to install hardened firing ports in walls or certain corners, offering a vantage to safely confront a threat if no other line of defense works. This might look like a small slit or opening in the exterior wall that can be opened from inside, typically covered or concealed. Again, if you go this route, make sure you abide by local laws and use extreme caution. A fortified home equipped with lethal force readiness is something you must handle responsibly, with due regard for neighbors and bystanders. The objective of such measures is to protect your family when there truly is no other option. Advanced fortification sometimes involves partial underground structures, like storm shelters that double as bunkers. You can stock them with emergency supplies, solar-charged batteries, or radio gear. Building anything underground requires proper ventilation and drainage solutions. Otherwise, moisture or flooding can render it useless. But done correctly, it can be a near impenetrable refuge in a range of catastrophic scenarios. If you can't build underground, a sealed room with thick walls in a basement might accomplish a similar effect. Such spaces can also offer ballistic protection if designed with the right materials and thickness. So let's bring it all together. Fortifying your home is more than just adding locks or building fences. It's about making sure you and your loved ones can face any crisis with confidence. Maybe you start by upgrading one vulnerable door or installing some extra lighting, then gradually add new layers, a reinforced fence, a few cameras, a solid plan for emergency power. Each step turns your home into both a safe haven and a welcoming space for everyday life. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to share it, drop a comment below with your own tips, and subscribe for more practical preparedness insights. Also, be sure to check out the tagged products. These are items I've personally used to enhance my own home security, and I highly recommend them if you're looking to bolster your defenses. Above all else, remember that fortification isn't about cowering from the world. It's about building resilience and independence. You can keep enjoying normal routines, knowing that if disruptions or chaos ever come knocking, you'll be ready. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next video.